Hello again everybody, and welcome back to another edition of On the Range in the A-10C Warthog. And today I'm going to continue looking at the effective winds on unguided bomb deliveries using the CCRP mode in the A-10. Although what I cover in this video will also very much so apply to any delivery that you make, be it bomb, rocket, or gun in the A-10. Because what I'm going to be doing is directly inputting wind data into the LASTE system, and the LASTE is kind of a part of a computer system that displays and predicts where ammunition is going to impact, or gives you the steering cues for where to steer the aircraft, like I'm going to be doing during the CCRP delivery. So by telling the LASTE system what the winds are doing at a certain set of altitudes, it can then compensate and update the steering that it's directing me to fly to put the bomb on target. So I'm going to begin here, and this is the screen that you get for a mission briefing before any mission that you fly. This is just it's actually the shooting gallery mission. It's the one that I've kind of converted for myself to use as the bombing range for the On the Range videos. But in here, I can see that I have wind data for ground level, 2,000 meters, and 8,000 meters displayed. And this is pretty much representative of what you'll get during any mission. I did exaggerate the winds somewhat in this one. I took a default weather setting, I think it was the summer cloudy and windy default weather, and essentially doubled the winds. So now I have 10 meters per second, which is, would that be about 20 knots at ground level, 16 meters per second, and then 14 meters per second as we get up to a higher altitude. It also gives me a direction that the wind is blowing to. So at ground level, 10 meters per second, blowing towards 160. So essentially blowing from northwest to southeast along the coast. And that is key, and all this data is key because the aircraft needs a lot of conversion work on the data that's given during the briefing. First of all, the aircraft needs knots instead of meters per second, so we need to do a conversion there. The aircraft needs the direction the wind is blowing from instead of where the wind is blowing to, so we need to do a conversion here. And also the aircraft needs magnetic bearing for the wind as opposed to true bearing. So this 160 is the true bearing, whereas we need magnetic bearing for the wind data. So there is a conversion for all of this stuff, and we also need feet to top it off. We need feet instead of meters. And now that I have all the data that I need from the mission briefing, I need to convert that into a format that is usable by the aircraft. And to do that, I built just a quick and dirty spreadsheet, nothing really much to look at, but the way this should work is the spreadsheet will be available in the video description, and you should be able to either save it as an Excel spreadsheet, an OpenDoc spreadsheet, or if you have a Google account, you should be able to save it as a Google Docs spreadsheet and edit it and use it from there. But the way that this works is you enter the data from the mission briefing in these top fields. It gets some corrections applied to it, and then it kicks out down here the data to enter into the CDU, into the computer, in the correct format. So essentially it kicks out data for 5 altitude blocks, 0 ground level, 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet, 7,000 feet, and 26,000 feet. It converts everything over to direction the wind is blowing from and knots, which is what the aircraft needs. And it also does a quick conversion on the temperature and just puts just a quick and dirty scale on the temperature as it goes from low altitude to high altitude. And all this stuff, incidentally, is right here out of this forum post on the Eagle Dynamics forum by Boris. It goes into a lot of detail, so all the stuff that I'm describing right here, yeah, I wouldn't know any of this stuff if it wasn't for reading this, so there we go. But that's the spreadsheet, so now I have all the data that I need to input into the CDU that is going to allow it to correct for the winds at these different altitude blocks that it extrapolates and derives data for. So let me jump into the aircraft and we'll go ahead and get things started and get this into the system and do some bombing. So I'll be right back. And now I'm in the aircraft and I've got everything started up and all the systems that I need online. And what I need to do now is enter the data that I got off that spreadsheet into my CDU, Control Display Unit, down here on the right, my right console. So let me get a little bit better angle here and see if I can make this. Okay, that'll be much better. So let me go ahead and bring up a kneeboard, and this has the screenshot that I took of It's actually a previous one that I did. I did one little change. I changed the 0 meters to 10 meters, so if you're really paying attention, don't let that confuse you. But right now at the bottom, I have the data that I'm going to need to enter into the CDU. But first, I need to get it to the right place so that it's ready to accept the data. So to do that, I'm going to go on my page knob to the other position, and I'm going to depress the system button. Okay, now it brings up a menu, and the LSK that I want to depress is the one that's right by the LASTE. And now I'm looking at my LASTE page. So there's a whole lot of stuff on here that you can see also. You can see that the LASTE is ready. The LASTE state is V for valid. I could even see, if I wanted to later in the mission, the number of weapons releases I made or the number of GCAS messages I get. But the place that I really want to go before I get too distracted is the wind. I want to go to the LSK next to wind, and that's going to bring me to my LASTE wind profile page. Now from here, I need to build the profile and enter this data into the system. Okay, to do that, I'm going to have several lines that I can enter data into, and you can see blocks for altitude, wind, and temperature that match up with the altitude, wind, and temperature block that I had on the spreadsheet. So let me start by getting the altitude block set up. So I'll start by going 0, 0, and then depress the LSK next to this empty block. And now I have a profile built for ground level, and I still need to enter the wind and the temperature because it doesn't have any data. Okay, so let me continue building my altitude blocks first. 0, 1. Depress the LSK next to that empty block. Okay, got it. 0, 2. I've got that one. Now it looks like I'm out of spaces, but I'm really not. What I need to do is go to the next page. You can see it says right here, page 1 of 2. So to go to the next page, I come to the page rocker switch, hit that, and now I'm on page 2 of 2, and I have 4 more blocks that I can use. So I'll just do 2 more, and that's 0, 7, and this is the 7,000 foot block. I'm going to do 26, which is the 26,000 foot block. And okay, now I have the basic profile in there for altitude blocks, but I still need to go in and enter the wind data. So let me come back up to the first page and start at the 0, 0 block. Now to do this, I need to go to the wind edit LSK and depress it. And now it's going to display all those altitude blocks that I've already input. Now I need to input the wind data. Now to do this, I start with the wind and I go 33319. I enter this as one number, so 3 digits for the wind bearing or heading, and then 2 digits for the speed in knots. So 33319, and then depress the LSK next to this first block, and 33319. That's my winds at ground level. 33339. Second block, 33339 again for the third block, and then I go to my next page, page 1 of 2, depress the page rocker, and now I'm on page 2, so my block at 7,000 feet, 056 for 31, enter, and 244 for 27, enter. Okay, so now on the left side, I have the wind data. Now I need to enter my temperatures, and I'll just start over here on the right side. And again, I have these LSKs next to blank data entries that I can now enter data for. So, okay, temperature at 26,000 feet is negative 26 Celsius, so I go 26, enter, and then to go negative, I depress that LSK again. So that switches between positive and negative. Okay, I have positive 12 for this one, so 12, enter. Now I'll go to the previous page and finish entering these. So 2,000 feet, I have 22. Got it, and 24. Got it, and 26. It goes a lot quicker if you're not having to describe it, believe me. So now I have the LASTE wind data profile built, and the computer now is going to have the ability to compensate for the winds when I'm on the weapons delivery. Okay, so we'll come back to this in a little bit once we get airborne and describe a little bit more about what this does. So I'm going to leave this page open on my CDU and have it also mirrored up here on my right CMDI, or doggone it, MFCD in the A10, and displaying data as we go. So for now, that's the setup. And let me get into the air and we'll demonstrate exactly what this does. I'll be right back. Okay, so now that we're in the air, we have a chance to validate some of this data. I've left this LASTE wind profile editing page open, and also at the top of the page, I have the wind direction and speed, as well as the free air temperature that the navigation system on the aircraft is deriving from what it's seeing. So the aircraft is telling me that the wind is from 333 at 31 knots with a free air temperature of 25 degrees. So comparing that to the profile that I entered based on mission planning data, I'm below 1,000 feet. So I was expecting 333 at 39 with a free air temperature of around 24 degrees. So yeah, 333 at 33, and as I climb, I'm going to, I can see that as I get closer to the 1,000 to 2,000 foot altitude band that this is modeled for, it's spot on. 333 for 39, and free air temperature of 23 degrees. So that just gives you a way to validate the model and validate that the data that you input into the LASTE system is correct. Now, all that would be done during mission planning. Essentially what would happen is the weather shop would provide this data for whatever the target area is, and then as part of the mission planning process, it would be entered onto a data transfer cartridge and entered into the aircraft along with all the other navigation and weapons profile and everything else that goes onto the aircraft as part of the DCS upload. But that's one of those things that it would be nice if that was done for us, but we still have the capability if we take the time to do it ourselves. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and climb up to about 10,000 feet and see exactly what this LASTE wind model does for us and see exactly how accurate it is. And I'm going to be able to tell what it's doing because over here on this LSK, and I'll come down to the CDU just so that this is generally speaking where I would use this from and not have it on the CDU. I have a wind entry and an LSK that I can depress. If I depress the LSK, now it kind of changes what part of the model is used by the LASTE bombing system. So right now it's using both the wind and the temperature model. If I depress it again, it's using neither. If I depress it one more time, it's only using the wind, and it just cycles through these different parts of the model that it's going to be using. What I'm going to do is, when I actually bomb the target, leave it in both. But for the first part of the demonstration, I'm going to go to none and briefly describe or show what this does and the difference that this makes. So let me go ahead and get set up for a pass with Mark 82s. I have two of them loaded, so I'll go ahead and go to Master Arm to Arm, and I will select my Mark 82 profile and put it into the CCRP mode. I'm going to step out to steer point 3, which I know I have some targets out there around, and I know that actually steer point 3 is right on the conventional bombing target that I'm going to be bombing for this mission anyway. So I'm just going to bomb on the steer point for this one, leave my steer point as the sensor point of interest. Okay, so I'll turn into the target area. I've still got a little bit of climbing to go, but I think I can give a good demonstration actually right here. I might need to get up a little bit closer, but okay, right now I'm getting steering cues and I have the LSK set to none, so it's not using any of this data right now. And you can see the steering cue that I get. And right now I'm lined up pretty much spot on. Now once I plug in this data, okay, now it's using the wind data, and you can see that the ASL, azimuth steering line that I'm steering towards, popped over to the right. I go to temperature only, it pops back into place. I go back to both, and it pops over to the right. So it is updating my steering cue based on what data it's using. So I'm going to set it back to none and just use this release as kind of a baseline just to see on the ground what the effect is. And I'll make this release, I'll have time to climb to about 7,000 feet. And that's a good spot to release from for this demonstration. Okay, so I'm set up at about 7,000 feet, and this is just a control release to see what the effect is if I have the system not using any of this data. So this is just as if we had not plugged in any data at all. Okay, so I've got 15 seconds to release. Okay, verify master arm to arm. Okay, 10 seconds to press and hold weapons release switch. Okay, here comes the solution queue. And weapon away. Let me engage my autopilot here real quick and let us follow this bomb in. Okay, so you can see the bomb. It's actually crabbing into the direction that the wind's coming. If you remember, the wind was blowing basically straight down the coast, so our right to the left. Oh yeah, that bomb is blowing way, way off target, and it was blowing short as well. Which is exactly what I was expecting, because that is where the wind is blowing. So that's a pretty good example of what you get with no correction whatsoever. So let me come around and I'll do that pass one more time, except this time I'm going to have it using both. So it's going to use both the wind model and the temperature model to give me steering cues and update the predicted impact point based on the data that I have entered into the system. So I will be right back. Okay, so now I'm set up for a second pass on this target, and I have the wind corrections and the temperature corrections being input into the computer. And this is just so significant. I was playing with this a little bit earlier, but yeah, if I switch the corrections off, yeah, it's just so significant. Let me put it back to both and get set up on this run. Okay, master arm to arm, mark 82. Okay, steer point 3. Okay, 10 seconds to press and hold weapons release switch. Okay, let me work on my guidance. Okay, that's better. Okay, weapon away. There was a little bit of pilot error in that. It is a little bit right of where I would have preferred it, but hey, this should be significantly closer. It's never going to be dead on whenever it's doing any kind of a correction or just any kind of a bombing calculation at all. But look how significantly closer that is. Just with those, yeah, like I said, that error to the right was my own steering error during that, because I was a little bit of right of track as I released. But that is a significant improvement just by entering the wind profile data into the LASTE system. And again, the forum post that I got most of this data from is linked in the description below. And also the spreadsheet that I used to build the LASTE temperature, altitude, and wind profile from is also in the video description. So check it out. If you spot something that is wrong in the spreadsheet, definitely let me know. I haven't really put it through its paces exactly yet, so let me know if you do spot something that's wrong, or if it just doesn't work for you, and I'll do what I can to fix it up. No guarantees though. But I hope you are enjoying this series. If you are, please do consider subscribing to the channel and help me out by leaving a like or leaving a comment in the comment section below. It sure is appreciated. And thanks again, and I will see you next time.